Biological Code Podcast, a podcast on Germanische Heilkunde. Welcome to the Biological Code Podcast, a podcast on Germanische Heilkunde, the greatest discovery in human history. Today I want to talk about the stomach. A friend of Brigitte once complained about stomach pain. So together they started looking for his biological conflict. Basically, a significant biological special program, or SBS for short, only begins once a biological conflict has been experienced. A biological conflict always consists of three criteria: highly acute dramatic, unexpected, and isolative. We also experience other conflicts in life, but they don't cause Mother Nature to help with a supporting program. Mother Nature helps with either increased function or function loss, depending on what makes sense for resolving the biological conflict. Psyche, brain, and organ are all acting simultaneously. That is the first biological law. If resolution occurs, the individual experiences the healing phase. Most symptoms appear during the healing phase. That is part of the second biological law. It's a biphasic nature. There are 3 germ layers and 4 tissue types. They all function differently, sometimes in completely opposite ways. These germ layers also have specific microbes as helpers. That is the third biological law. The microbes only set to work during the healing phase. They are nature's surgeons, and they help A. to remove tumors and B. to rebuild tissue loss. This is the fourth biological law that Dr. Hammer discovered. Diseases do not actually exist, because what we call diseases are meaningful biological special programs of nature, understandable from a developmental historical perspective. That is the fifth biological law, the quintessence. So, this friend, a right-hander, had stomach pain. In this case, it was a male-perceived territorial conflict, which would be displayed in the male territorial area of the brain. Here, certain rules apply, which one should know about. Since we're dealing with a right-handed man, it's quite simple. Stomach pain in a right-handed man is a territorial anger conflict. So what happens there? The outer germ layer, the squamous epithelium, reacts. We also have the so-called gullet mucosa pattern here, which means there is pain during the conflict active phase, not in the healing phase, and only briefly during the crisis. But where is the pain? In the small curvature of the stomach, sometimes also in the first section of the duodenum, because they belong together, cell loss occurs, which we call an ulcer. The greater the intensity of the conflict, the larger the area affected by cell loss, and the longer the conflict lasts, the deeper the ulcer becomes. That means we immediately know when the conflict is resolved, because the pain disappears. The squamous epithelium is rebuilt, but we no longer notice that. So, how did they proceed? Brigitte asked him, "Where are you most upset in your territories right now?" Every man has different territories. His wife, his job, hobbies, etc. And then it was immediately clear. At his company, some employees had banded together against him and spread lies about him to customers and business partners. Now we not only knew what the conflict was, but also what had to be done to resolve it. He had to regain respect as the boss in his territory. And he did, so brilliantly. He could clearly prove the accusations were false and thoroughly clean up the rumor mill with his business partners, customers, and employees. Afterwards, things calmed down at his company and the stomach pain disappeared. Once you know the cause, the solution often unfolds right in front of your eyes. This man is a very kind and sensitive person, which employees shamelessly exploited wherever they could, escalating into bullying their own boss. That had been his biological conflict. He hadn't expected it. He had to regain respect as the territorial chief himself, and by doing that, he resolved the territorial anger. During the healing phase, the pain disappears and only briefly reoccurs during the crisis of the healing phase. If the muscles also react, in this case the striated muscles of the squamous epithelium, contrasted with the smooth muscles of the rest of the stomach, It can lead to true stomach epilepsy with vomiting, which is very painful. Whenever squamous epithelium is affected, absence seizures occur during the crisis. Whether they are noticed depends on the conflict load, and if they happen during sleep, they go unnoticed. There can also be stomach bleeding that leads to black stools. This is actually a good sign, but is often misunderstood and interpreted as something bad. Now, of course, we could also talk about left-handers and territorial constellations, but this we will do in another episode. The knowledge of Germanische Heilkunde belongs in every household. If you want to learn the biological code and truly understand the 5 biological laws, you can find more information on our association's website, urkraftleben.at, or visit thebiologyproject.org. If you enjoyed this episode of the Biological Code podcast, subscribe now to follow us for more. Thank you for listening. Until next time.